Thank you, and good to be here. Hopefully, everyone can see my screen.
It's just come
I'm
through.
just
Not in
sharing
presenter
now.
mode yet. Okay, it's in presenter mode now.
Fantastic, cool. So, hi everyone. My name's Toby. I'm the founder and CEO at Entopy. And the talk today, I thought about this because it's almost exactly a year on since I last presented to the Gemini Call, when we were in the midst of deploying our technology for the Port of Dover. And we had this idea around how it was going to work, and I was explaining around some of the concepts and so on. So I thought I'd sort of put together a presentation, almost like a lessons learned 1 year on. What are we seeing? What are we doing about it? And so on and so forth. And I thought that would be interesting to the community. So what I'm going to talk about, obviously, I'm going to talk broadly about what we've sort of learned about the digital twin market, this kind of mystical thing. The challenges that we see most present, just from our perspective. So this is very much a sort of entity perspective view. How we address them today. So what we're doing about it in the field today, and the areas that we're focusing on sort of moving forward, just from a sort of R&D and strategic point of view. A very, very quick introduction to Entopy, because I'm very aware that the majority of people on this call probably won't know who we are. So we're based just outside of Cambridge. We're actually in Newmarket, as has been recognised this morning. We're a small but very technical team. We consider ourselves highly innovative. There's a buzz. But we've kind of operated in what's considered the digital twin space for about 7 years. Our focus is very much ports, and we are deployed in major ports in the UK. There's a couple we can't mention, but we can mention the public domain activity with Port of Dover. We're also the only UK and only digital twin company to have been selected on the NEOM accelerator. So there's a lot of activity in the Middle East from us. And this category of system digital twins is very much where we're focused. So I like that categorization, the sort of product, process, and system view, but it's very much system twins that we're focusing on. As I've just mentioned, there has been some success. Not all of these headlines are solely Entopy, but there were recent press releases from Dover around our partnership and how it's helping them to cope with increases in demand over this summer. And the deployment's about 12 months on now. We've seen real success there, and the use case is about basically predicting and managing traffic flows through the port to avoid congestion. So our digital twin spans the strategic road network of Kent. It captures predictive flows of how traffic is going to arrive at the port, but also incorporates kind of outlier, more deterministic aspects such as road traffic accidents and roadworks and so on. Outside of this, we're working with other ports more on the marine side. So there's a really, really exciting project with a port that shall not be named that's looking at the berthing of vessels. So how we can more efficiently predict future constraints that cause maritime port congestion, which is obviously a major issue. And we're starting to venture into other areas as well. So very broadly, and this is quite high level. I'm very happy to arrange calls with people that want to go slightly deeper into this, but I'll keep it quite high level for this morning. From our perspective, this is what we're seeing the market sort of wants. So again, we're speaking very much from a sort of operational systems and ecosystems perspective. But this large theme around holistic intelligence is probably the standout. So many of the organizations that we work with or are talking to have fantastic systems, IoT systems, back office systems, sometimes, very, very isolated and specific AI solutions to do various parts of their operation. But bringing that together to deliver holistic intelligence across an entire system or ecosystem is very, very attractive and is exactly what we believe the market is looking for. It is absolutely about prediction and simulation. From a simulation point of view, there's various sort of, I think, perceptions of what we mean by simulations. In a lot of places, there is simply not enough data to do things like Monte Carlo simulations and so on and so forth. But it is the ability to test these kind of what-if scenarios as well as predict future state. In every single conversation we're involved in, it's about driving intelligence to human operators to affect decisions. So we are not seeing digital twins come in and start to automate processes and remove jobs of working people. It's a hand-in-hand kind of almost symbiotic relationship, and this is about driving the right data, the right intelligence to human operators to make better decisions. And very, very clearly, we're seeing different stakeholders within organizations need slightly different grades of or flavors of the message. But at the absolute nub of everything, where we've had successes, it's where we've been able to clearly define a use case with our partners and derive tangible outcomes. Now, I know that might sound very obvious, but it's super, super important. The other thing that I wanted to touch on from a high level point of view is just this kind of crazy growth projection that we're seeing. So one of the questions that I have when I look at this is, how are we going from 6 to 200 billion in 5 years? What is driving this? We see it as a convergence of three things. We see improving AI models becoming more accessible, more data through IoT deployments and reduced costs. Sitting behind all of this, there's obviously everything that's exploded with AI, LLMs and so on, which I think has given people slightly inflated. People have kind of created their own narrative as to what those things are, but it's very much warmed up operators and strategic players within organizations to wanting this kind of holistic intelligence. And when you start putting those markets together and look at the sort of overlap, it starts to explain very clearly how we're going to achieve those projections. So these are things that we're seeing that I thought would be interesting to share. From our perspective, the real challenges, I've listed all of these are important. All of these could be, top of the tree. But in terms of what we see in terms of causing us the most challenges when deploying digital twins in the real world, I've listed them there, and I've sort of tried to grade them in terms of how much of an issue they're causing. The standouts are the fact you've always got multiple stakeholders in these ecosystems, multiple source systems, and the problems are incredibly complex. I can share these slides as a PDF afterwards. I'm just very conscious of time. But the areas that we very much focused on from an Entopy point of view is how we can pull together data from lots of different sources and put that into a sort of common format, how we can develop an ontology that allows us to put that data together to deliver insights, but gives us the flexibility to iterate and expand as the organization expands or changes. And this idea, this notion of what we call AI micro models, which is basically tackling the problem complexity challenge, which is saying, actually, look, these problems are made up of many independent but interconnected problems, and we need to treat them that way. So we have many focused AI models deployed at very specific parts of a problem, and we integrate those models, the outputs from those models, together with real-time data into the digital twin. And that helps us to address many things. And this is my sort of penultimate slide. I'm conscious of time again, sorry. But just in terms of our roadmap and the areas that we're looking to focus on, we have a strategic focus on critical infrastructure. The thing that's really interesting to us is at the moment we're working with organizations to solve organizational problems. There is a very, very, very clear opportunity to move the organizational focus to a network focus, and that's something that we see really kind of moving the needle. Having this kind of rapid proof of value model, so getting to value quickly, getting something tangible on the table so that we can engage operative staff as well as innovators. Obviously, we're focusing on growing that micro model library. I think the interesting thing here for the community is we're focusing on problem type, not necessarily use case. And then these are the kind of big research areas. These are the things that we see causing the biggest barriers over the next few years. So this concept around generating synthetic data. So data accessibility is a challenge sometimes because organizations don't actually have the data, but there's also a huge amount of sensitivity around sharing that data, particularly in the environments we operate. So there's a lot of research and development. We're working in partnership with the University of Essex to understand how we can generate synthetic tabulated data sets that are effective to train AI models and use in our digital twin. The outputs from that research is moving us towards more automated orchestration of the data sources within the digital twin, which is ultimately going to increase our scalability and help us to serve more dynamic use cases, this kind of concept of a floating concept. So, a lot of activity, very, very much shaped by what we're seeing in the field. And my last slide is, we're very open to speaking to people. If anything that I've said sounds interesting, this is very much more a sort of lessons learned as opposed to a sort of product pitch. But if there is interesting things in there, we'd love to speak to you. We're hiring at the moment, so if people want to be part of the journey, please reach out to us. And there is the potential for a capital raise towards the end of the year. So if people are interested in that kind of thing, again, very, very happy to talk to people. But thank you very much for listening. I hope I haven't overrun too much, and I'll close there.
Toby, our next question, and I'll be reading out the questions that are highlighted in purple at the top of the list, which are in order of which they're most liked. Toby, how are you protecting the data from external sources to avoid data poisoning, like traffic data being corrupted to launch a denial of service attack against the port?
Has been built on effectively a distributed architecture. So we have lots of connected systems connected by secure APIs, and the way the platform is designed is to have those secure interfaces and various monitoring across them. With regards to the models, which is specifically what they're asking about, we treat those models as effectively external systems. So if you can imagine an AI micro model is a completely independent thing that has an API integrating it with, so again, same secure interface as you would have with an IoT system. It's completely distributed. So if one of those models becomes corrupted, it would be detected and it's very easy to isolate. So distributed architecture is effectively the very, very simplistic answer.
Very good. And a follow-up question for yourself, if I could, Toby. Are you using the Mirand platform in Neon?
No, but we are in collaborative discussions with the autonomous group that are behind the Mirana platform.
Very good. Another question, if I could, sorry, Toby, for yourself, is based on your personal and professional experience, what is the most challenging aspects you faced in this project by leveraging digital twins? Where is the most focus needed?
I'd say there's three areas that stand out. Number one, data availability, data accessibility is a big challenge. Number two is the amount of time and resource it takes. Every environment is completely unique. So every environment requires a lot of developer resource to stand it up and DevOps to run it. And the third one would be the business model. So it's very, very difficult, we've found, to divorce a product from consultancy. And I think a lot of digital twin producers would probably relate to that.
Very good. And another question for yourself, if I could, please. Let me just mute that person who's...
I've got some crap downstairs, but
1 second. You're going to have to unmute yourself as well, Toby, because I'm muting everyone. Toby, if you... There you go. Back. Final question for yourself here is, this is a question for yourself, Toby Entopy. Can you expand more on the synthetic data generation digital twins? The marine environment can vary a lot during the year, which can result in huge amounts of driving parameters. How can you account for this using lightweight surrogate models?
So this is a really cool thing that I haven't labored. So the way we're doing it, so this is a really complicated challenge, and I completely get where the questions come from, right? Generating synthetic tabulated data sets in these environments is explicitive word hard, right? So the way we're going about it is we're effectively using the concept of knowledge sharing. So if you can imagine looking at an environment that has that data set, albeit in a completely different area. So let's take two ports. One's got loads of marine vessel berthing data, the other one hasn't. The idea is that we're going to use something called a conditional generative adversarial network, a CGAN, to learn that data set and the way that data set behaves, and then take a small amount of the actual data set that we want to replicate and effectively expand it using synthetic data. This is using all sorts of very novel concepts. We're using reinforcement learning. I've just mentioned the CGAN. The research is going incredibly well. This week we have created what we call a DQN, which is able to detect feature importance from a data set, which is the first step in creating a CGAN and doing it effectively. And this is research that we're doing in partnership with the University of Essex. And it's the precursor, if you think about automated orchestration, and the first step you have to do if you want to automate the orchestration of data and models, first thing you've got to do is select which data you're going to orchestrate. So you can start to see how all of this links together.